to run a successful today. And also, I'd like to thank the Pacific Vision Foundation. They are the major sponsor for this event. Without their sponsor, we will not be able to have this event. And today we have 3 people from the Pacific Vision Foundation. That the chairman, Sandy Chow, which is a very generous person, and he gave a lot of financial support to APAPA, to our organization, also many leadership organizations. And also we have David. Here is, I'm sorry, I forgot your title for the Pacific Vision Foundation, but you are actually run this foundation, right?
Yes.
David. And also we have Anthony, the executive director and the board member for the Pacific Vision Foundation. That's David. Thank you all very much. And also I'd like to thank our sponsor Sandy Chow and Jazz from Vallejo. He is a Vallejo City Council come here. And also David. David is the first Chinese congressman. He flew here from DC just for this event. Thank you so much, David. And we'll have a couple more speakers. Oh yeah. David is also Sandy's guest here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Jeffrey.
Oh, Jeffrey. Oh, sorry, I haven't met Jeffrey yet. Jeffrey is a guest from Sandy Chow. I'm sorry, I haven't met you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey. And we'll have a couple more speakers. Neil Aldrich is the City Council of Danville. He will come a little late. And also Evan Lowe, Assembly Member Evan Lowe. He will come at around 4 o'clock. And also I'd like to thank you again for all the participants to come here, spend this afternoon with us. And also I'd like to thank all these volunteers, Winnie and Ben and June, Margaret. They help us to kind of have this set up. Let's give them a round of applause. So before we start the program, let me give you a brief introduction of APAPA. As you see, this event is hosted by APAPA, Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Association, also hosted by Pacific Vision Foundation. I think Sandy will talk about the Pacific Vision Foundation a bit later. Let me introduce APAPA a little, since some of you are new to APAPA. So APAPA's mission is to promote the advancement of Asian and Pacific Islander Americans through active participation and leadership in civic and public affairs. The organization educates the public about public policy, provides opportunities for youth to gain first-hand knowledge and experience in government and public affairs. And to summarize that, we use 3 E's. First E, educate. Just educate people to be the leader, to give you all this knowledge you needed for participate in civic affairs. Encourage people to go out, to be more active, join like a PTA, get appointed, get elected, and to be a more active member in the community. And third one is empower. Empower people. If you want to come out to be the leader, we'll provide a network, resource, education like this one to empower you to be the leader. And APAPA Tri-Valley area covers there's a Tri-Valley area here like Dublin, Saremont, Pleasanton, Livermore, Danville in this area. Also around the 680 going north like Wanna Concord. And in this area, there's about 20% of Asian or API at this moment, and most of them moved to this area in the past like 15 years. Like Travagli, 15 years ago, we will have like a 5% of API. Now we have 20%. This meeting ceremony, 15 years ago, we have maybe 5%. Now we have almost 40%. That's a lot of API. But we do not see a lot of API leaders in the government. This is what we try to help. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Sandy to come out to speak a few words here and also talk about that Pacific Vision Foundation. Thank you.
Can you hear me better if I don't use this? Because
Yes.
I find a tremendous amount of echo from this.
Okay.
And then if I use it, then I will sound too sexy. Well, that's at this age I don't intend to. But anyway, okay. So I just want to say how many. A few months ago, I came to Ceremony and Andy asked me to talk to our good friends from Ceremony. How many were there show up that time? Yeah, I think a few. Because last time I prepared my live on history to talk to everyone, and that ended up to be the auditorium. The janitor need to close the door. So now for the 3 hours of speech I have had to cut short by more than 50%. But that that day talking to people from Ceremony is basically I want to tell everybody my past experience, and then through all the journey of many places and different political environments, and I end up to be here, and I found out this is really a place that we are building the future for ourselves and building the future for our future generation, because we are integrated in this country. So this is why all the things that we do. Number one is just that as a responsibility for ourselves, we're building not only for ourselves now, but we are building a better foundation for our future generations. And also, it's integrated generation, but rather than building a stronger America. This is what is my speech was about, and that I just for those who didn't come to the last time, well, this is the conclusion. So now, and then America is being built great. In the early 100 years, it's a very young country, and of the first hundreds of years, it is called the Atlantic era. That's built some foundation for America. And then about 160, 170 years ago, then the Pacific people come over, and there was a very large, significant struggle, because the Atlantic influence want to resist the Pacific influence. And so therefore, about 130 years ago, they create a exclusion act, because too many people from the other part of the Pacific, and they are just as much contributing. They're just working hard, maybe even harder, and they are really together and created more efficiency. They say, well, those people are skinny and not very heavy set, but in terms of building the railroad, they build railroad faster and more efficient. And then they build up the orchard and then the farming and everything more efficient. They create a threat. somehow that's been repealed. I think David had a story to tell how he came to this country about 50 some years ago. And then that is basically Pacific is over. From the Pacific, we have, after the Second World War, we have a wave of Filipino people came over here. And then they laid a very solid foundation for here. And then we have Southeast Asian coming here. And then originally we have the Japanese Americans and the Chinese Americans. And then during the Korean War, there's a lot of Koreans immigrate to here. And then all this time, people from India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, all came here and then create a very, very, together with the Pacific Islanders, create a very good sized population. And then I think Asian Americans represent, I think it's about 18 million people. If we divided up all the Asians, maximum you get 2-3 million people. And then the power is not strong enough. Our voice cannot be heard. So this is why Pacific Vision is formed. David created the name because not only we should have the Atlantic era, we are coming very strong of the Pacific era. It's because the industry of around the Pacific are booming and up and coming. They're even a larger economy in the future. And then it takes the Asian Pacific Islander inhabitants, citizens in this country, to create a smoother bridge for the future. So this is what we call the Pacific Vision. But however, you can't do too many things. And then it concentrates on civil leadership. The civil leadership is basically, it's not one person's job, it's everybody's job. So therefore, this is why we get together. We want to help the Solano County, we want to help the Alameda County, Contra Costa County, and all the counties within our group. So therefore, we can create an ecosystem. This ecosystem is starting. I think in Germany, I think Andy have been paving the road, and then CC of APAPA created APAPA have been paving the road. And the aim is not particularly promote any idealism, but somehow promote a participation, promote a at least you have to register, at least you have to be educated, you have to participate, and then you become a part of it. So Pacific Vision is basically something, and then people ask, what is the difference between the internship program and this program? The internship program we are building from the foundation up to have the youth to have a choice. In whatever profession they are, they could participate in whatever profession they are and be as good as they are. But to have them aware of not isolating themselves, but rather open up themselves to the general society. And then that's very important. And then also the internship or APAPA internship of Asia America, and then for those interns, it's so important they become the ambassador liaison when they intern with the elected officers, and then also the elected officers will connect to our general community. So that is very strong. But what Pacific Vision's leadership is, we are actually in the forefront of participating. We're at the forefront, we are actually it's already at the front of the, what I would say, at the front of getting what we should have now. We are trying to learn the success of the past. We try to learn the failure of the past, or we just learn the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of what we have done. So therefore we can have a forum to improve on it, so therefore we become stronger for the future, and this is exactly what today is about. So therefore, you are actually part of this movement's history, and every one of you are very important, because today I saw the program, how to organize a team, how to raise capital. It cannot be out of one person, out of one team, out of the resource of everybody. So therefore, it will be something like this. You are basically today, you make friends, and then you know it's important that we have to accept our differences, but because togetherness is so much more meaningful. So in 1979, I started an organization called AMA. At that time, I was only able to gather some Chinese entrepreneur founders in '79, and then unfortunately at that time, somebody for South Asia, somebody from mainland China, somebody's born here, somebody from Taiwan, and then some born here, and they get together, and the first thing they refer to is the early 60s and early 50s. They think Chinese cannot work together. Now, but one person, Bob Chen, stand up and say, why could we start now to start working together? I think it's us doing comment on we cannot work together. It's something that other people say. The important thing is us. You can make a difference. You can change. And because of that, AMA become very, very, I think, pretty influential and powerful for the community. And then it's miraculously, and then during the last 10 years, the two Asian Indians are president, two Koreans, one Japanese, and then a couple of Chinese. They take turn to be the president of the association. So this is what I think is very, very important. And then because 2-3 million cannot influence the country's politics, but 18 million, we can do that. And then togetherness. And then always, my aim is that everybody wants to change the world. Why? Because we want your future generation to be in an affluent and peaceful world. So therefore, it's always my desire that if everybody try to accept everybody, and everybody not suspicious of everyone, we'll have world peace. I spent a lot of time recently or some years ago study the Muslim, study the Hindu and everything. I think a lot of time between different race whatsoever, it is the mistrust that create a lot of conflict. I would say if we begin to trust each other, begin to work with each other, how can you hate your friend? So therefore, basically, I would say continuously, we should start here to work with all Asians, no matter what background they're coming from. I think this together will give strength. So therefore, basically, it's us. I hope this is. we started Civil Leadership Forum about a year ago in San Mateo, and we did one in Florida, in Texas, and then now in Sacramento, and then I hope continuously this is the first time that everybody worked together on this, but on a continued basis. I would say, would try to get the wisdom and experience of somebody who's been there and share with everyone here, and then move forward. I think together we can move forward first with small steps. But I believe you with such a great nourishment from all the generous people to come here, you will grow in strength and then in wisdom very, very quickly. And I believe several more will make great strides moving forward. And wish you good luck.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. And I think I'd like to point one thing I always tell others why I respect Cindy. There was one time I had lunch with Cindy in ceremony, and we discussed a lot of things. And then I told me, hey Andy, I'm flying out to New York tonight, right now. I said, why? He told me, I need to attend a meeting in New York, and if I fly right now, I will save a day of hotel. But you know what? It will make millions of dollars every year for the leadership program worldwide. So, for people like this, I don't know how many people you know like this, like really live a really frugal life and try to save a penny, but donate millions of dollars every year to the community. So let's give a round of applause to you can see here. Now we have the Danville City Council new honor. Just like Cindy says, we are here not only to learn all these how to run and how to raise money, also way to make a friend. I think the one thing I missed here is I forgot to let everyone to introduce each other. Thank you, Lynn. So because we have very tight schedule, let's make it very brief, just a couple sentences at most. I start with me. I'm Andy Lee and APAPA Valley Chapter President. Also, I'm sitting in the Several Economic Development Advisory Committee and Several School District Council Tax Oversight Committee and the Council Costa County Land Territory Commission. And also, I sit on the board of Leadership Several Valley with new honor.
Hi, my name is Sam. I am from San Francisco, and I'm exploring the opportunities to
Just speak a little louder. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michaela, and I'm from Oakland. I work in San Francisco. I work at PSR.
No. Oh,
And I work with companies on sustainability and human rights issues.
My name is David. I'm a lifetime APAPA member, and I have a volunteer job at a local TV station and the TV news anchor, and also a reporter. I'm Douglas Jia. I am director of APAPA Tri-Valley chapter. Well, right now I live in the Sacramento River Delta. There's a famous community called the Lock. It's the famous Chinatown, which is a National Historical Landmark because it's the first Chinatown built by the Chinese and for the Chinese. Right? So I'm here because somebody here gave me the idea that maybe we can incorporate Lock into a city because right now Lock is under the administration of Sacramento County. So thanks to that person for giving me this aspiration, and here I am. Let's go.
My name is Anthony A. I'm the Executive Director of the Civic Foundation.
Nolan Chen. I live in Milpitas now. I'm serving on the Sister Cities Commission there, but I'm very excited. We're planning to move to San Ramon next month, so I'm excited to be here.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Peggy Chiu. I am a member in APAPA. I just joined about 1 month and belong to its Bay chapter. I am a former friend California Chinese schools.
Hi, I'm Michelle Lee. I'm a resident of Danville, and I work at APAPA and Rotary in San Ramon also, and just involved and very interested in all of the public policy and hoping to work on some campaigns and help them be successful.
Hi everybody, I'm Sylvia Tian. I live in Pleasanton. Right now I'm the Pleasanton City Economic Vitality Committee member and also the Pleasanton School District local kind of.
I use mostly I'm involved in some of the community, including non-profit organization, just try to help to bring people together. Recently, I'm more involved in to help our local patient for the election.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Schwan, and I'm a San Ramon resident for over 10 years. I'm in the same Rotary Club as Newell.
My name is Samir Hakim. I served the Dublin community as a trustee of the school board. I was appointed last year and I'm got an edge of this November, so I hope this workshop is useful for me. I believe in community service and that's why I do public service and volunteers.
Hi, this is Lynn. I'm from San Ramon. I'm part of the student advocacy client, and we have a very beautiful art school and over 400 students. And also, I'm with the welcome committee member of the art committee of the San Ramon. Yes, so come here to learn.
Hi, my name is Margaret. I'm the board member of the APAPA Valley chapter. I'm also the co-president of the Dublin Chinese Association and the of PCA. I'm here to learn from everybody.
Hi, my name is Civic. I serve as the board of APAPA Valley chapter. I also serve as the president of Valley Postmaster Club. So I'm involved for Civic Civic and Startup Association.
Hi everyone, my name is Reese Howell, Vice President of APAPA Tri-Valley Chapter and the Voter Education Chair for this year. So Andy has already told everybody that we're going to have a voter forum next for Sunday and they're welcome to come. And currently I'm serving on the San Ramon Transportation Advisory Committee.
Oh yeah, my name is Betty.
Speak a bit louder.
Yeah, my name is Betty. I'm trying to go for the Dublin School Board, and then I'm very honored to be here.
Former politician, former technology attorney in Portland, Oregon.
I'm vice mayor of Monaco in 2015, and he has 25 years of Navy veteran. He served there and received the Navy Achievement Medal, 3 Gold Stars, and also Navy Commendation Medal, 1 Gold Star, and also the receiving of prestigious Meritorious Service Medal awarded by the President of the United States. And now he retired from the active duty back in 2000. He's a member of the Military Officer Association of America and the Navy Fleet Reserve Branch A, the American Legion Post 105. I think Jess, you were born in Visit, right? And then moved here and become the U.S. citizen now in serving. So without further ado, let's welcome the Jess to talk about how to effectively raise money. I think one of the important things for the campaign. So just to be clear, and for each speaker we give like 40 minutes. You can use 30 minutes for the speech and 10 minutes for Q&A, or you can do different things. Do you need a speaker?
No. Thank you, Andy. You can hear me in the back?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. You know, I'm here to talk to you about campaign fundraising. So, how many of you are thinking about running for office? One. A couple. And thank you for thinking about becoming public servants. I wish more and more Asian Pacific Islanders
would consider it, it does give your community a voice in government. So I think it's important that we think about that. And fundraising, I'm not a professional fundraiser, but I see two ways of doing it. In my city, the city of Vallejo, to run for mayor, you probably need to raise about $100,000. So we're not a really big city. And the easy way to raise that money is to call Sandy Chow and CCN. And each of them would write a check for $50,000 and you're done. You're ready to run for office, right? The reality of it is fundraising is a little bit difficult. And one way to visualize it is, when you're running for office, you've made that decision. What is your vision? What are you going to try to accomplish to deliver your message to the voters? And how much money would it take to deliver that message? Once you have an idea what you want to do, and say you decided you're going to run for mayor and you need to raise $100,000, then you begin to figure out, how am I going to do that? Short of writing the check yourself. And in this country, we don't rely on our own resources to raise the money to run for office. We go to the community and ask them to help us. And so what you have to do is you have to look at your prospect list of donors. And you start with your own family. My brothers, my sisters, my parents, cousins, nephews. You go to your relatives. And for each one of your relatives, you know that they have families. They have friends, they have their own circle of people that they're close to that could potentially become part of your pool of donors. Also, you need to look at, for example, if you're like Andy Lee, who wants to run for city council in San Ramon, and he has a group of friends like you begin to realize that you can grow. All of you automatically become a prospect for Andy. I might write a check for $100 to help him in his campaign. But each one of you would have friends. So if there's 30 people in the room today, and each of you have 10 close friends who you could convince to support Andy, and then all of a sudden there's 300 supporters. So that's kind of how you grow your prospects list. Relatives, friends, colleagues. Another way is to look at affinity. What does Andy represent? If Andy is big on the Humane Society, he cares about animals and what happens to them, the abuses about animals, then he's going to have an affinity to people who think like that. If he's an environmentalist, then people who belong to the Sierra Club, people who care about the environment, he would have affinity too. So that's the kind of group of people that potentially could be incorporated into his list of prospect donors. And one thing about running for office and raising money, one word you want to avoid is to be shy. You never want to be shy. You won't raise any money if you are shy. So eliminate that from your vocabulary. If Andy is a union member and he's involved in the labor movement, then he may have an affinity with the working men and women of the city where he lives. And so they could become a supporter. They could become a prospect, a group of people that might donate to this campaign. So that's kind of how it works. And put no limit on it. Your own doctor, your own lawyer, your own dentist, your own, if your kids are going to a local Catholic school or a public school, then think about the parents you met, that you associate with. And potentially they become a donor for your campaign. So now how do you, once you have this pool of people that are your target donors, how do you get the message across to them? First of all, as a candidate, you craft your message. What is your message? What do you stand for? What do you want to do if you get elected? You know, you can say, hey, I care about public safety. I want to grow the police force. I want more firefighters. I'm sick and tired of potholes. I want to fix all the local roads and streets in my city. And once you have that kind of message, then that's what you want to put on a piece of paper, a mail piece. And your prospective donors, it's really a database. And you can get to them by email, by social media, by writing a letter, and just delivering the message. And when you think about your donors, you have to admit that some people will write bigger checks. So once you announce your campaign, and the mayor may not agree, Congressman, but once you announce that you're ready to run, you need to immediately embark in a fundraising effort. And knowing that some people in your prospect list have the capacity to write a bigger check, you may want to invite them for a special, let's say your kickoff is tonight. You may do it an hour early and bring in these big donors and spend some special time with them, where you know they may be thinking about writing a check anywhere from $500 to $1,000, where the other people who are inviting you expect them to come in and write a check for $100. So, you know, you have a group of folks that are potentially high donors, and then you have the regular donors. Now, to run a campaign, you know you can't do it yourself. And Sandy has told us repeatedly, none of us are affected by ourselves. So you develop a team, you put a team together, and each team member know people. So their own connections is also potentially a pool of donors. Now, once you embark on a campaign, you don't initially raise funds and you quit. It's non-stop. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You're constantly going to be bombarded by communications from Hillary's team or Donald Trump's team. And they'll say, oh, this week we suffered a setback. The polls are showing that we're losing in a battleground state. And could you please donate another $10? And you're going to get bombarded with, fundraising is constant, it doesn't stop. So if you're running for office, you're doing the same thing, just don't be shy. You know, if you're targeting voters who will be coming out on October 11th to vote by mail, you don't want to wait until November to raise money so you could create a mail piece and distribute to your potential voters because you're shy about raising money. No, you tell your supporters it's going to cost $10,000 to create a mail piece to go on this next cycle of mailing so that the voter knows what I stand for. And you want that mail piece to hit the mailbox right around the same time that the absentee ballot is showing up in the mailbox. So you're always raising money, constantly raising money, and you're always following up. You do it by mail, use the internet, use social media. Some people phone bank now. You gotta be careful because you don't want to call Andy and ask him for $1,500 and have a supporter make that call. No, you, the candidate, you better be the one to call Andy to ask for that big check. Now there are some simple rules that you wanna follow. Remember, when you're fundraising, you're basing it on a budget. So if your budget's $100,000, you're gonna mail 3 mail pieces throughout the campaign, prior to absentee voting, prior to poll voting. Some of the money will go to your vote signs, some of the money will go to your yard signs. You need to have a budget, you need to have an idea what you want to do so you know how much money you need to raise. And don't limit, you know, you can, if you're having a big fundraiser, don't put any limits to that. Or what you want to do is have big fundraisers and small fundraisers constantly throughout the campaign period. It could be just a barbecue where you're asking for $25. But it could be a special meal where, you know, you ask people to dress up and expect the donors to come in and write a big check. So you do a combination of all of that throughout the year. Again, constantly following up. If you have a volunteer who spoke with someone and they pledged $500, don't hesitate to mail a card and say, hey, thank you for your pledge. We're just following up. Please send a check. There's nothing wrong with that. And then we have presidential race. How many Latinos? How many Asians? How many voted in the last 4 local elections? So, you know, you want to hire a consultant that understands data, a consultant that knows how to fundraise, a consultant that knows how to deliver your message. And as far as the rules, I'll just give you one example. There's many, many rules. One recent example is if someone writes a check for $1,000, you have a responsibility to report it the very next business day. If you miss the reporting period, you're already in violation. So, and this applies this year. I think it started last year. Any donations over $1,000 needs to be reported almost immediately, the next business day. And there are many, you know, there are many different forms, types of forms to fill out. So that's really it in a nutshell. Fundraising is not easy. It's only easy if you know people like Sandy and Cici. But the one thing that it will do for you is it will make you get to know the people that are donating to your campaign. It's good to know who's supporting you, and you'll meet some of them as you walk the neighborhoods. Just to wrap it up, again, I'm teaching to you that all of you should consider running for public office. Thank you.
So, Jess, thank you so much. Any questions for Jess? So, Jess, you can come.
Thank you very much. I think the information is very, very helpful. I do encounter some community members that will constantly raise the question, was how do they get access to the candidates' donation list? How do they find out who is donating to the candidates? Is there a way?
Oh, yes. I'm not sure about the frequency, but each candidate is required to submit a report to the civic clerk and disclose all of the donors.
Okay.
Not everyone. If someone donated $20 in cash, it's kind of hard to capture that or record that. But anything over $100 are recorded. In fact, you cannot accept $100 in cash. It has to be a check. If someone gave you $100, you need to return it because that's a violation. But yes, it'll show you who they are, their occupation, and how much they donate.
So another question that they were raising was that if, say for example, if I'm running a campaign and I need to have the records of all of the donations to come into my account first before I get to spend any of that money. Am I correct? So you can pay for the money and later on get reimbursed by the donation?
You mean using your own money?
I'm sorry?
You mean
using your
me
own
donating to my campaign?
You enroll yourself some money.
Well, yeah, probably at the beginning you donate some money to yourself, but for example, I know a big check is coming in from Sam. But what I'm saying is, say for example, I need to spend $10,000 on yard sign or whatnot, but there's no such money in my campaign account yet. But I can spend the money first, knowing that there's going to be a big check coming in, or do I have to actually wait till the big check to arrive in the account before I spend it?
You can donate to your campaign or loan money to your campaign.
Oh, I see.
That's what
Let me
they-
just clarify that issue. Never donate to your campaign. No, loan to your campaign.
Loan.
Because if you loan, you can get it paid back.
I see.
However, getting your loan paid off is the hardest thing that you will ever do. Because nobody likes to pay off your loan to yourself. Okay? So just keep that in mind when you're making that
So
loan.
what's the process, if you loan the money, okay, you loan the money to your campaign, so do you need to write something, like a note or something?
Well, every campaign is different, but yeah.
You only want to do that if you're in a pinch. You know? You really want to get the mailings out before absentee voters
Yes.
cast their vote. Yeah. But if you're struggling like that, you're probably not running a very good campaign. You shouldn't struggle.
And by the way, if you lose, you loan yourself money, you just lost the money.
Yes.
Nobody pays anything, so.
Just now you mentioned, Betty, go ahead. She is running now, so I believe Betty has more questions. You can go ahead and I will ask.
Go ahead, we'll come back there.
Talking about 1,000 and if you raise $1,000, you have to pay for next day. Is that just one check?
Next
or
mission
accumulated?
day. $1 for over
Oh, just $1.
1,000 or more.
So
$1.
you can have a couple $1,000.
No, you can't let it build up, you just gotta send in a report right away.
All right, so, and then also I have a question. There's like you using the, is that PayPal account? They say if you're under $100, you can put notes with the address, their employee or the detailed information. Is that okay?
That's fine. The key is identifying their occupation, if it's over $100. And the other key is you cannot accept cash of $100 or more.
Oh, okay.
Cannot. It has to be a check.
The email account, so the PayPal account, if there's like a business and a family, because the business is when you have to put a certain percentage. Is that okay to open your personal Gmail account? I mean, the PayPal account.
PayPal charges a fee. That's their business. If you donate a certain amount, they'll add a fee to what you're donating. But that's between you and PayPal.
This is so hard. I mean, all of this is so hard, and it's so easy to get in trouble. Are there people locally who can run your operation? I mean, in essence, do compliance so that you don't get in trouble?
Yes, just go to a consultant. They don't. They do it for your messaging. They help you with the language. You have consultants that will take care of your accounting. Who knows the rules.
Where can you find the consultant?
I have some contacts. We can.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I just want to mention that they're not necessarily campaign consultants, but they're compliance specialists, and they charge a whole lot less.
People I know are professional campaign consultants who does their work for a fee.
Oh, yeah, they all have fees, but, you know, it's like $100 versus $1,000, that kind of thing.
I think you can go to your local voter register office for information, and they won't charge you.
Yeah, I think there's like.
If you're in doubt, you can call them up.
Okay, I remember there was like a format, and you can fill out each person fill out when they try to donate. Is that right? You have an email, but the email I called us because they were charging like 3% to 6% of whatever the donation is.
I'm not sure. Maybe we'll talk offline. Yeah. Yes.
My question is, just now you mentioned that there are fair political rules to govern all those activities.
Yeah.
Where can we find it?
FPPC, just Google it. Anything campaign financing, at least in the state of California. FPPC, Fair Political Practices.
If I could add, you know, one of the ways the paperwork looks so common. I've done local elections and state elections, very different set of rules. But for local elections, the easiest thing to do is go to your local city clerk, so that would be the town or city that you live in, get a copy of a previous candidate's report. And once you see it, it makes sense. If you try to read it and try to make sense out of the paperwork, it seems overwhelming. It's simple for local elections. Very complex congressional elections, you have to have a professional company doing it. You can never keep up with it. Or even I ran for state assembly. If you don't have a third party doing it, you'll be in trouble before you start. But on local elections, just get a copy of somebody else's and start with that. And what you want to find is, it's easy at those other statewide and federal to find a consultant. It's hard to find a consultant that just does FPPC filing for local elections because it's pretty simple paperwork. It looks complicated, but it's simple. But there's not enough money in it. So by campaign consultants, they will do that as well because they're going to make money by charging you thousands of dollars. Versus for the other campaigns, you would have your online donation system. It automatically does the paperwork. It automatically does it. There really isn't one for local elections because there's just not enough money in it. It's pretty simple paperwork. It looks complicated, but very simple. So get a copy of somebody.
So I think it was pretty clear about this, but I just want to ask this question anyway. So it's not possible to have anonymous donors then, or do you there's no such thing as anonymous donors? I was just wondering.
It's called a felony. Every district attorney looks at us.
So there is none for any amount.
$99 or less. That's it.
Yeah. So if you're less than 99, you can be anonymous donors.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I know one candidate who the seniors in our city put $5 in the envelope every time they get their Social Security check. And, you know, they do it 2 or 3 times, so it's $15, $20. No one's tracking that.
Are you?
Hold on. Sorry.
Okay, it's a couple quick questions. So I know it's I think most people will start at the local level. Can you list like 3 things you need to be very careful when you kind of raise the money? If you pay those 3, you'll be kind of get punished with whatever the federal family, whatever. The first question. Second question is, I know some people does this. It's like, okay, I have this car, and I donate this car to the event. They have an auction for this car. The car will be auctioned for $1,000. So for those $1,000, who need to? The one who I can buy this car, or the one I'm the one the owner of the car?
I think there are donations in kind that's tracked separately. My comment to you about a $1,000 donation, I think it just started last year. They just want to know who wrote that check, and you have a responsibility to report it immediately. You know, like.
Right.
But if you auction an item and it's sold for $1,000, I think that will go in as a donation in kind.
I will be my donation.
I could just add, it's actually two things. So you can't have an organization like this do fundraising for you. They can have an event, each person who donated would have to list their occupation, and you have to have a copy of the check. Not only a real check, a copy of it, but let's say if you do an auction item, the person who donated it, that's the in-kind. So let's say it's worth $50. You have to list that for the person who did $50. And then the person who pays for that, you actually have to make sure they write the check, not to your organization doing it, but to the candidate, and then you'll keep a copy of that check. Every transaction you must have a photocopy of. Credit cards, it's okay to use the statements, but you have to have a paper trail.
So it's not about $1,000. If it's like $900, this cup worth is like $50. Then will be like my $50 will be in-kind donation. The other $850 is the actual donation to the candidate.
Yeah, or it could be a football signed by a attorney. You know, it's worth $75, but it's sold for $2,500. Same example, similar example.
The other question is what the three things you can think about we need to be careful when we raise the fund.
The three things you need to.
It's like over $1,000 you have to report the next day. Any other things?
So, well, the reporting again, once you've done the first paperwork, it's easy. Once you've done the second round, it's really easy. The reporting that he's talking about is, that's during the actual campaign period. So any individual donation of $1,000 or more, or if you spend over $1,000. And the reason they're doing it, they want to make sure your opponent knows what you're up to. Because last minute money, now on local elections, it's not that big deal. Assembly and congressional elections, yeah, it's a big deal. But the other thing you should know, there's no campaign limit on contributions for local elections unless that local entity passed an ordinance. So for example, in Danville, there's no limitation. State Assembly, it's set by the state legislature. It's $4,200 per campaign cycle. The Senate has a slightly different one. Congress has, I don't know what the limitations are, but there are limitations like that. So some cities have term limits. Some cities have campaign contribution limits. Those are all legal. You need to know what those are. If you violate that, it's really serious. The cure for it is you have to return the money immediately if you made a mistake.
What do you do with your money if you either you win or you lose and you got money there?
Basically, you have a bank account, and any residual campaign funds, it's up to you. You cannot give it to yourself. You can donate it to somebody else's campaign or charity. But that does not become your money.
Can he keep for the next election?
Oh yeah, sure. You can keep your account current. There are reporting requirements. That you'll get a call from the city clerk and say, hey, you know, where's your 470, or they'll look for a specific form.
You just mentioned that we should start. If anybody wants to go to election, we should start and ask for donation ASAP, right? If you agree, you say you're not going to run this year, you're going to run 4 years, 8 years later.
No, you have to file there's a sequence of events. One, you decide you're going to run. Two, you actually file to run for that office. Open your bank account, develop your group of officers, and then begin your fundraising. You can't just raise money now and think about running 8 years later. No, that won't work.
You can teach. You can say, like, if she's money, she can come and say, hey, I want to wait later. Can you pitch $2,000? I will help you to run. If I know she can actually put in some money that will help her to become more bold to run for office.
I think it's risky to raise money if you're not running yet. I think you file first and then raise the funds. I think that eliminates any chances for trouble. Yes,
What if I lose this time for the campaign, but I have some money left, and the next time for example, if I run for school board trustee this time, but next time I change my mind and choose another
You can do that.
student,
Yeah.
I can use
Yeah,
the.
there's some administrative things you need to do to adjust your account. Close one, reopen another.
They just can't take local funds and go to the federal. Those campaigns, you cannot transfer money.
Yeah, if you're running for Congress, then
You have to start.
Oh, so I cannot transfer the money from local to state, something like
State
that?
you can.
Oh, state you can.
But not federal, which would be Congress or Senate. And by the way, if you had money, you lost and you had money left in your campaign, that's the problem. Spend every dollar you can the first time. You didn't, that's why you lost, just to be honest. Just get your message out. Sorry. Spend every dollar.
Is it okay to ask your organization, any organization to donate to your campaign?
Sure.
Company, any organization?
For example, I was supported by labor groups, and so the electrical workers union write a check for $1,000, donate to my campaign, that's fine. The carpenters union, they may want to write a check for $1,500, that's fine. Yeah, no, you can be supported by. Congressman, I don't know if I even want to bring this up, but there is such a thing called independent expenditure donors. And I'll just caution you that those people, if you accept money, well, those people will support a candidate and not talk to the candidate. And they might deliver a slightly different message than what you're trying to deliver, so be careful. Be careful with that. So. One more?
Can you have give us a range? Usually in local level, how much money will use, people will use for the campaign, and in the state level, how much, in Congress level, usually how much is it?
I can only speak to local.
Sure.
In my city, most people running for city council will have a budget of about $75,000. For mayor, between 100 and 120. Not much more than that. You can only buy so many signs to put out on roads. There's 120,000 people in the city of Vallejo, and the likely voters is averaging around 18%. So you're not going to send mailers to 120,000 people. The consultant will tell you, hey, these are the only people that actually vote. So you don't want to target people that don't vote.
How about $1 a resident? I mean, if it's local, like you're running for city council, it's about $1 a resident.
So
if you're first time, once you get elected and if you're successful, that drops dramatically.
That makes sense. That's a good rule of thumb. So, all right.
Any more questions? One last question?
Okay, Andy,
Oh,
thank you.
the end is here. Like I just said, I think the fundraising is one of the most important things. Also, just pointed out, you know what, no matter who you vote, how much you vote, I mean, there's many items you just vote one, as long as your ballot is valid. No matter if you just vote one item, your ballot is valid, is counted. They don't know who you vote, what you vote, but they only know you vote. So this is why we encourage people just go out to vote. Like he said, if you don't vote, they do spend money on you. They may ignore your voice. So just go out to vote. Next, because I think it's a little bit late for the East Coast, maybe next we can ask the Congressman David. So he was elected as a congressman between 1999 and 2011 to represent the congressional district of Oregon, and he is the first elected Chinese American congressman. And when I talked with him and learned the story, he was elected. I mean, before this, before he was elected congressman, he was not elected for any position, right? So he moved out from maybe planning commission to the current director, right? That's really amazing. There's a more amazing thing is, as an Asian kid, he was a really good kid in the past. He attended Stanford University and then moved to the Harvard University, studying medical, right, in the medical school, and then jumped to the Yale Law School. At that time, he was a really good, very kind of typical good student for the Asian family. Then later he abandoned this and then started getting elected, which is not a typical Asian people. So, like I said, he is the first member of U.S. House of Representatives of Chinese descent. He served as a member of the Science and the Technology Committee and Education. Also, he's a co-founder of the boutique law firm Important Oregon, specializing in high technology, high-tech, and corporation investment. Also, he was a judicial clerk at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So, without further ado, let's welcome David to come here to talk about and how to educate people to vote for you.
It's very good to be here this afternoon. I haven't been to San Ramon before, but I have been nearby. My brother-in-law is from Moraga, and when I was in college, when I needed some kind of clearing of the head, I would come to Moraga and spend a day. It was nice horse country back then. I'm not sure if it's still horse country. But all of us grew up in Southern California, and all of us came to the Bay Area for college. They had the good sense to go to UC Berkeley, and we all we came north, but I wound up furthest north in Portland, Oregon. You may wonder why I'm sending my phone out. I'm timing myself 20 minutes for my talk, 20 minutes in Q&A. The senator from Oregon said you can be forgiven for any sin in public speaking except for being too long, except for being too lengthy. So I try to be brief. I'm going to try to leave as much time as possible for Q&A. Public speaking has been a key part of the democratic process ever since there's been democracy, ever since the days of the Greeks. And I'm going to address the mechanics of that first, or a little bit about that first, because I think that it's really, really important to motivating voters, which is what I'm supposed to talk about. It's difficult. It's the thing that scares people the most in life. But it's something that you can learn to do. And if there's something that scares you, but it's important, the key thing to getting over it and to learning to do it well is to do it a lot. To practice, practice, practice. And that's especially true of public speaking. And one thing you'll learn, well, things that you'll learn, is that speaking in the morning, before the first cup of coffee, before the audience has had the first cup of coffee, is really different from speaking in the evening when your audience has had a glass of wine already. It's really different from speaking at lunchtime when people dive right into their food. Speaking before Chinese American audiences is really different, depending on whether you're in Palo Alto, where people are quiet and polite, or if you're speaking at a banquet in New York City, where you kind of feel, do you ever see those National Geographic documentaries where a great white shark has a seal pup? It hits grass and kind of tosses it up like this repeatedly. That's what you feel like speaking at a banquet in New York City, because you're just pulled this way and that. Everybody's really, really loud. And you know that you have at most 2 or 3 minutes to make your point, because everybody's going to start eating again and talking with their friends. So you've got to know your environment, know your audience, and very how you're going to do it to fit in to that set. Now, people can tell if you're speaking with passion or not, and it's really, really important to talk about something that you care about and to speak about it with passion, because they have a gut sense of that. And you will be convincing if you are convinced yourself and you care about it. They will also be nervous if you are nervous. They will be uncomfortable if you are uncomfortable. And let me give you a couple of things that some speakers do that I try to do. And for men, check your tie. You know, make sure that it's up. And I got this somewhere else. I didn't make it up. Touch your zipper. So, you know, you don't have to worry. Is my zipper open? Right? And this is more generic for men and women. If you're eating, don't eat the salad. Okay? Because there's going to be some piece of greenery, and it will inevitably be at the front of your mouth. Okay? Now, comfort, and confidence are really, really key. I don't know what the rules are for women. I've never dressed as a woman, so I assume that there are dress rules and, well, you know, comfort things that you ought to figure out and make sure that you feel confident when you're stepping up. Now, stepping over to motivation and connecting with voters. First of all, what to talk about. I bet a bunch of people in San Ramon probably have a somewhat of a technical background. Maybe. Everybody knows what a Venn diagram is, right? Yes. Okay, so Venn diagram. Here's what you care about. Here's what the voters care about. And most of the time, you should be talking about intersection, about what I care about, what the voters care about. Most of the time, about this. Now, sometimes you need to be talking about what the voters care about, because it is about what the voters care about. What are the times when you talk about what you care about, which the voters may not care about? There are things where you convey how important things are, which are not important necessarily to the voters. But they get the sense that you have solid values, that there's spine to you, that you know that there's some backbone, and you have, hopefully it's connected to a reason of why you're running for public office or your background. They want to hear about that. You know, why are you up there? But most of all, they want to hear about what are you going to do for me, and that's very, very, very legitimate. What do you do to find out what your constituents care about? Well, I'm a big believer in knocking on doors. And you might think, well, you know, what's a congressional candidate doing knocking on doors? Because when I first ran, it was 670,000 people in a congressional district. But when I left, it was 730,000 people in a congressional district. There is no better way to get a sense of what your voters, your constituents care about than to be on the doorstep and to listen. You're there to talk a lot less than you're there to listen. You know, listen. During part of the campaign, you do want to convey what the campaign's about, but most of the time that you're there, you're listening, and people care about that. So you learn things about what's going on in the community, what your constituents care about. I think that that's the best way. By the way, there's another value to knocking on doors, which is, we've heard about campaign consultants. I think they're very, very important. They are professionals. They're there to help you with campaigns. They've seen a lot. They do not live where you live, and they do not knock on doors, and they have not met your constituents one by one. I predict this. If you run, there will come at least one time when all of your consultants say, you should do X. But you think I should do Y. And most of the time, they're going to be right. But there are times when they're all wrong because they don't live where your constituents do. They haven't had their lives. And you've got to have the fortitude to say, no, I'm going to do this. When I voted against the USA Patriot Act, I thought, you know what? I think Oregonians are going to be okay with this. And even if they're upset, I think that I can go home and explain this. Now, the third piece of that is, I feel so strongly about this that if they want to, if after I've tried to explain it and they want to throw me out, you know, that's okay. So knowing your constituents is really, really okay. Now, the piece about the Patriot Act is all my consultants say, you better vote for this because you're going to doomsday if you don't. Now, when you start, before you can start talking about these issues, there's a decision which you need to make about whether you do polling or not. And for lower budget campaigns, maybe you don't, but I think that if you're running a $100,000 campaign, you should, you should pay for a less expensive poll. You know, it's like you're a college student, a smart college student. If you're going to spend 30 hours studying, you ought to plan out how you're going to use those 30 hours. If you're going to spend $100,000 on a campaign and maybe $60,000 of that is messaging, then you ought to spend a couple $1,000s on a poll to do a statistical study of what your constituents care about. For a congressional race, you're going to pay more for a poll. It might be $5,000 or $10,000. For these presidential guys, boy, they're paying out the wazoo. Now, a congressional campaign pays a lot more for a poll, but we're not going to pay generally. We didn't pay for what are called quantitative studies, which is watching a dozen people discuss something, or have topics come up, and there's a meter where they twist a dial and say, you know, this enthused, this unenthused. Those are some of the tools of the trade, and they help you understand what your constituents are thinking and how they feel about things. But depending on the expense of the race, you may dial up or dial down the tools, but you want to calibrate the tool, the size of the tool, or the granularity of the tool, to the amount of money that you're going to spend on campaigns. So you develop a message, and hopefully that is going to be effective in motivating your voters. For a $100,000 campaign, you're probably spending direct mail. Yes. Yeah. And door hangers, like I said, you know, backing up your door knocking, you're leaving a piece of literature, and you should design it so that it addresses your constituents' interests in a very quick and colorful way, because you have to get their attention before they throw it away. And a piece of direct mail, front, back, because they're going to go from the mailbox to the trash can, and you want a reality check, you know? So you want to get the message out front, back, and some people will actually open it up. But you want to convey that message effectively, and that's where some consultants come in, because you should not try to design that stuff yourself. You shouldn't try to design it alongside yourself. There are times when you want to do that when you have a really low budget campaign. Sometimes when you want the affect of a homespun campaign. People can tell if you're faking it. I think voters are very, very intelligent. You know, they can tell if you have it in your gut or not. So one piece is how you speak and how well you speak, and another piece is understanding what voters want. But what do you want? No, what do you care about? What do you really care about passionately? And there should be several of those things. Because if there isn't, then why are you running? You know, life is easier without running. And B, life should be about service, you know, not about ambition. You're not going to make money in politics, so let's just say that. But you know, it shouldn't be about fame. It shouldn't be about ambition. It should be about service and bringing something to the public equation. And people can feel whether you have that or not. And if you don't have 2 or 3 or 4 things that you really care about, then maybe you ought to give it more time. You know, maybe you ought to be a little bit older so you figured those things out. I haven't covered as much as I want to about convincing voters. But a lot of that is situational, depending on where your voters are, what kind of campaign it is, and who you are. And if there are people in this room who want to run, the wonderful thing about what Sandy's doing is that he's making it possible for people to come and work with candidates as a group or as individuals. And I'd be happy to come back, and you've got great speakers here. They have already provided or will provide a lot of further good information. So you know, we can come back and you can ask questions later, but now I'm going to turn it over so that you can ask questions now. Yes, Sandy?
You talk about passion, and then you talk about belief, and then you cannot fake it, and things like that. Then my question is, who is educating you? Is the voter educating you, or you educating the voter? Because today, voters, when you listen to the voter, and voters have passions that are different from you. So where's your passion?
Well, it's something that goes both ways. And I think that it's important for the voters to feel that you have passions. And hopefully that you are passionate about the things that they care about. You want to listen to their passions. And that's a teachable moment. But you do want that. You want to hit the intersection of those two Venn diagrams. And you want to address the things that they care about. Ultimately, that's the most important thing. Yes, Caleb.
So in a year of presidential election, when voters talk about national issues, how much does the local candidate address some of the national issues that are coming up versus sticking with local issues?
In this election year, I would stay away from national issues. I mean, just take it. Look, people in San Ramon have a lot of issues in San Ramon. Now, I don't know what they are, but I know that there are a lot of issues in San Ramon. You know, there's gotta be. And they care about those issues. And they may have opinions about, I don't know, foreign policy or whatever, but voters rarely make their decisions based on foreign policy or trade policy or whatever. They do care very much about local services. You know, garbage gets picked up, the schools are good, if the potholes are taken care of, if the water is, you know, basically comes to the home. which is why I said, as a congressman, that I had great leeway on these national issues, as long as I didn't screw up sewer, water, roads, and education, and so on. Because if you screw that kind of stuff up, you're toast. You're gonna lose. But those are the things that touch people's lives every single day. That's what makes local office really, really hard. And that's what we should be talking about. That's what you find out. What do they care about? And that's what you're going to talk about. That's what your campaign literature is doing.
I want to ask the following question on this. So if you have a group of people, they care about that, another group of people care about the opposite. So how do you go there to make those two happy? Try to avoid,
If you try to make everybody happy, you are nothing. Make a choice. Make a choice, take your punishment up front, and people appreciate that. What voters hate is someone who's namby-pamby or someone who tries to please both sides. People hate that. At least that's my view, and I think that it's worked for me, and I've watched others, and it's worked for them.
You cannot try to bring people together. There's no such a thing in our way.
Bringing people together is really, really hard. Save it for after the election. Okay. Bringing two people together is really hard. A lot of people say, why can't you bring people together? And actually, they don't want to be brought together. But, for the good of the city, for the county, for the state, for the nation, that's an obligation. You should try. But it's really hard. And it's really hard in the context of the campaign.
For example, whether the average of unisex, boys and girls share the same one group or whatever gender, we can use the same bathroom. So people are on both sides. So do you stand on the side based on your opinion, or do you go to the data, find out which side has more supporters? What do you base your side?
Well, first of all, do you care strongly about it? I'm asking because I'm going to ask you to decide how you're going to treat this. Do you feel strongly about that issue?
I do.
You do. Okay. Which way do you go on that issue?
Am I supposed to share?
Yes. This is a teachable moment, so we got to share.
Okay. Don't punish me for this.
No, I'm not.
It should be boys, girls, but not everyone at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. If you believe that strongly, that's what you ought to say.
Okay. But even though the poll says I should do the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because will people vote depending on the poll? And most of the time, the answer is no.
Okay.
People vote on a complex web of issues, and pollsters can actually
Change.
Well, pollsters can, they can actually look for issues that can move people one way or move people the other, but the truth of the matter is people rarely decide on just one issue. There are those issues. Being pro-life or pro-choice is one of them. On the pro-choice side, it's rare for pro-choice voters to vote just based on that issue. But for a pro-life voter, if you're pro-choice, you've just lost that voter. Okay? But that's okay, because that's not, for a pro-life candidate, that's a matter of conscience. That he or she should never cross that line. And if you really believe in the woman's right to choose, then, you're not a good person to start with, but you're not going to be a good public servant if you sell out using a creature. If you sell out that position, to be over there, and besides, you're going to lose people over here. So, there is one thing that I can say to you, which is on really tough issues, answer the question, sit and move on. Are you pro-life or pro-choice? I'm pro-choice. Boom, move on, okay? Don't keep talking because you're just, you're just digging that hole. Just, are you in favor of firearm safety? And I always say firearm safety. Yes, I am. Boom, move on.
I can ask a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I faced this problem one point in time, and I talked to the people. So I had an issue where my supporters were opposing the view of the stand I should take. But when I looked at the issue, it was very different, and I could not agree with it because it would have impacted my core belief that the students would be impacted. So I took a stand that I would be not taking the view which my supporters want, but I went ahead and talked with them, and I had their support that, okay, we agree to disagree, but we get it. Is that a good thing, or like, because I feel that we were building a school and there were people opposed to building a school in that place, and I felt we need to build that school, and I went ahead and I pulled them up front, I'm going to take a stand, you can back off, or you can support, but this is my stand and this is the reason for it. Did I do it right?
No, that is a very, very good thing. And it's a good thing that what you did was a very, very good thing. And you had good constituents because they did a very, very good thing too. By saying we can agree to disagree. And that's actually much more common than one would like to believe. It's unfortunate that that seems to be decreasing in the American electorate. There's an increase in polarization. That's very unfortunate. But I think that for the vast majority of Americans, agreeing to disagree on a wide variety of issues is still okay. But there are those what people call third rail issues where people won't agree to disagree. But that's a good that's a very good thing. But the way that yes,
Great, Dave. When you're operationalizing who you're speaking to, who you're not speaking to, you want to speak with the people that agree with you, but there's that middle ground, the then that we're talking about. So how do you sort of rules of thumb or formulas as to who you should talk to, who you shouldn't, and want to take a risk and talk to the people who don't agree with you? And how do you communicate given those issues?
When you are not well established as a candidate, you're not credible as a candidate, as I was not. Andy pointed out that I had never held public office before. That is when you need to speak to the core group. I spoke to a lot of core Democrats, to the county Democratic parties. I needed their support, or if they had already signed a board with my opponent in the Democratic Party, mitigate their opposition, never be afraid to talk with people who are already on the other side, because the goal is to just get them to not hate you, to just be against you, okay? But you want to, at that point in time, address, if you will, the base. As the campaign grows, you go out further and further in concentric circles. When I was an incumbent, I was always addressing the margin because the center of the circle was going to stick with me unless I really screwed something up. So I was always pushing out to the margin, always pushing out to the margin. And I realize now, in retrospect, that I was on the verge of developing a problem with the core that I should have spent like 5% more time with them. But these are the things that are easier to see in the rearview mirror than out the windshield. So you're recalibrating this all the time, and you don't always get it right, but you used a good term when you're operationalizing these things, and there is no fixed formula.
We only have so much time, right? So
You only have so much
you have
time.
your consultants telling you what to do, you have your gut telling you what to do.
You only have so much.
Executives.
You only have so much time. I think urgency is the most important attribute of a successful campaign. Urgency, urgency, urgency. The candidate only has so much time. You can't manufacture more. So, you can grow a team, and you can, by growing the team, you have more hands on deck, but you can't grow another pair of hands or another head on the candidate. So you have to just be very, very efficient and be very clear. This is something that can only be done by the candidate. These are the things that can be done by someone else. And the things that can only be done by the candidate are the most important persuasion things. Fundraising is one of them. Addressing core groups is one of them. That's hard-earned money. People donate because the candidate, him or herself, asks. When you're going to a voter, when you have a volunteer knock on the door, that's like 10th best, as opposed to you knocking on the door.
Well, to be on the doorstep, do you have a discipline to set the number of calls in relation to the population of your constituents?
A doorstep or calls?
Yeah, to make how many doorstep calls?
Okay.
Do you have a ratio between number of calls and the number of your constituents, the population?
Because there's so many constituents, our goal was to touch as many people as possible, understanding that you were not going to touch a meaningful percentage. Okay? But over a period of a decade, if you have a decade, you are going to, people talk. Let me get back to that in a second. So let's say that you've developed an effective message. You talk about it, it's in your print literature, and if you're in a congressional campaign, you're going to run TV ads, and in other campaigns, maybe radio ads. Okay, now you have a piece of literature that talks about 3 things, just 3, that the voters care about. This is how we did door knocking. It's not original to me. I'm not a rocket scientist, but boy, you learn from rocket scientists, right? I mean, this is just mechanical. I tried to door knock with 5 volunteers. 1 volunteer walked with me and a voter list. And then we had 2 volunteers on each side of the street. And on each side of the street, the volunteers would hopscotch, one would go to a doorstep, and then another volunteer would hopscotch that one and go ahead, and go ahead, and go ahead, and go ahead. So there are always 4 doors being knocked on. Because 1 out of 5 doors, 1 out of 4 doors will have a live person there. And at every single door, you leave a piece of literature that says, that our campaign, or I asked my volunteers to write, "Sorry, I missed you, David." Okay? Now, why did we do that? Because people talk. And so people will say, he was in my neighborhood. Now, they may not talk with each other immediately, but enough people will talk. Now, you want to run up to as many doors as possible. You want to run up to every door so that you can have the live conversations. So you want efficiency in getting to the door, and when you get to the door, you want to talk. Your volunteers stop, and you have that conversation, and it's a learning experience. You've learned from that person, but that person is also the validator to the neighborhood that you were actually there. It wasn't a fake piece of literature, okay? Now, in your first campaign, probably the most important thing is learning what your constituents care about and that gut sense so that you can tell your constituents at a critical moment, no, I'm going to go this way when they all want you to go that way. That happened one time in my first congressional race, and it was important. It was really important. I had great consultants, but they're, they're not 100% right. But it's really important for building that gut sense. But it's also an aspect of good government and what should be happening in a democracy. I had this, I don't know, he was like a 45-year-old guy, knocked on his door, and he came to the side gate, and he was barbecuing in the backyard. And he said, oh, you're a candidate for Congress. Wow. No candidate for Congress has ever knocked on my door since Pete McCloskey knocked on my parents' door when I was a little kid. That is someone who remembers. And that is someone who believes in American government. And part of your job is to keep that faith going. And door knocking is, I think, a core part of that. And hopefully the doors that I've knocked on, people will still remember. I visited a lot of schools, and I had people in college tell me, oh yeah, you came to my elementary school. And my staff would say, why go to schools they can't vote? Don't you realize those kids have parents? And they're going to listen to what their kids say, and besides, education is one of the most important things to me as part of my person and part of my congressional service. Yeah, that's appearing in schools is part of what I do. And besides, I enjoy kids, I enjoy young people. So there are all sorts of things you do for all sorts of different reasons. And if you do a bunch of these things, a lot of good things just, it's like good karma. It comes back. But you should always also be smart about it because you don't have all the time. You don't have all the energy in the world. Sandy?
I have 3 questions.
You get one.
No, one is just the how do you take advantage of school games, like or school activities, and number 2 is just the is telephone cold call, and who are the people that you should call? Are they effective? And then number 3 is just how to sustain yourself when you do not have that many hours.
I'll ask you to explain your third question. But I understand.
Basically, it's just the it would be general question about how much commitment one must have in terms of his time, and that's are they going to work to death, and then to what?
Okay. Sandy knows part of what I used to do, and so he's giving me a good lead-in. I love schools. Things should be genuine. I love schools. I love high school football. And I used to go see high school football games before I ever ran for political office. Once I ran for political office, I turned it into something that served my purposes extremely well. We typically went to 3 high school football games on Friday night. There aren't that many things going on Friday night, but there are 1,000 parents at a stadium. And if you time these games, what you can do is you show up at the front gate when people are first going in. So you're shaking hands there. You have a little time to watch the game inside because I enjoy doing that. You go to Stadium 2 and you're at halftime and you mix it up with the parents. And then you go to Stadium 3 and they're leaving the stadium. And at all 3 places, Well, depending on the time, you know, you don't want to be handing out literature when you're in the middle of your term. And I did this in the middle of my term also. I just really enjoyed it. And, you know, when parents didn't want to talk, I just watched the game. And I saw a lot of good games. Number two, cold calls. You mean voters or fundraising?
Fundraising.
This is really, really hard because you have people you know, and it's hard enough to ask those people. It's really hard to ask people whom you don't know. But you've got to do that if you're going to raise sufficient money. It was never clear to me whether I was ever going to run for political office, and I have not run for office until Congress. But I learned, Stanford did me a few favors, and one of the favors was raise money. And they had this training, boy, you know, every society teaches you that it's impolite to ask for money, and you got to get over that. And this is the greatest thing. You are not asking for money. You are giving them an opportunity to do something that they want to do. You're not frame it that way. You are giving them an opportunity. Well, there are people, you keep personal lists. You're at the opera. Those opera goers, the people who support the opera, are people who, by definition, have some money. That's true of a lot of organizations, the volunteer organizations. They're supported by people who have money. You know, keep those names. There are a lot of things that you can do by yourself or for yourself. There are also professional lists, but you have to purchase them. And over time, you will build up your own list the longer you stay in office. Now, cold calling itself. You have to raise a bunch of money when you're in Congress. And you spend a bunch of money, a bunch of time doing it. It's not as much time as people say. I'd say it's maybe 15, 20% of your time. But it's really hard. It sucks up time, but it sucks up more energy than time. It's like going out on a first date every 15 minutes because you're saying, "Hi, Fred, how are you? It's been a while since we talked. How's your wife? How are the kids? Are they doing well in college? Maybe you ask about the dog." And you talk about all sorts of stuff, and you're rebuilding a rapport, and then you reach a certain point where it kind of feels good. You know, you try to talk about some issues that the person cares about, because hopefully you have those issues in common, and then you make a very specific ask. You know, we've got a tough race coming up, and I would like you to donate $500 by next Wednesday. And you stop. You just stop. And it's human nature to fill in silence. And you wait. But it's one of the hardest things to do. It is the hardest thing to do in political office. I think it's actually easier than to say, you know what, I care about this issue so much that I'm going to get booted out of Congress and vote that way. I'm sorry, I think that decision is easier than the continued process of needing to raise money. And I'm going to close with this about just dealing with difficult processes like that. You all know that, well, maybe just a brief reference to the fact that I went to medical school for 1 year. And with respect to fundraising and door knocking and a whole lot of other things, you know, if you want to go to medical school, you're going to have to take organic chemistry. And whether you want to take organic chemistry or not, you're going to have to take organic chemistry. So if you want to go to medical school, you might as well get over it, you know? Just be okay with taking organic chemistry. So a lot of it is just kind of toughing it out and keeping an eye on what you can do for other people when you are in office and finding those commonalities. Thanks, and we can talk more at the end of the whole program.
Thank you so much, President David Wu. And think about this, he come here speak for 40 minutes, but his round trip flight is 10 hours. So he really tried hard to make this event. So thank you so much, President David. So next, I'd like to introduce the 5-term mayor of Danville, New Andrich. And I think he served Danville Town for over 20 years. And a number of people know that Danville is the hometown for the Captain Sandberger, who the pilot who landed on Hudson River. There will be a movie this summer. It's out.
Came out Friday.
Yeah.
Friday, watched it.
And also he's the co-founder and president of CEO of AE Architect. And he's also the board member of the Innovation Society and 20 years member of Chamber of Commerce. And as I said, I'm Rotary, and Neil is a member and past president of Danville, Sycamore Valley, Rotary Club. Also, Neil is the board member and past president of Leadership Sycamore Valley, and we're honored to serve the same board as Neil. So, also, last thing I want to point out, but not least, is Neil is a great supporter of APAPA Charlie Chapter. He's the one went to CC's ranch in Beckville to support us 2 years ago in August, and also he's the mentor of our APAPA Charlie Chapter. So thank you.
Well, I'm just going to reiterate, because you were talking about fundraising, Jess. It's the most unpleasant part of being in politics, but it's real. And I'm going to talk to you about how you communicate with the public. And you all have an idea about how to do that, and how to talk about the voter. But how do we communicate? And you're going to notice when that one comes up. We have one thing in common. We're pretty good speakers. But we weren't. Captain Sully's a really good friend of mine. Right after the event back in 2009, if you were standing in this room, you'd be the quietest guy standing in the corner. You now can stand in front of you. He's an exceptionally good speaker. He was not. He was forced upon becoming a good speaker because of the way he was exposed to the world, and he had to do it. It was very hard for him. In fact, if you watch the movie, you see he had a PTS kind of experience out of it. But communicating is important on all levels. Communicating with the public, communicating with the voters. But I got to ask you a question. It's very unique, and it's only pretty much unique in the West Coast to California, and it's a law because it's in the state constitution. Other than the state assembly, the state senate, the 7 statewide offices, what's unique about all other office holders? Anybody got an answer? You're running for office. You should know this.
I didn't get the question. I apologize.
Yeah. So the question is, what is unique in the state of California if you were not in the state senate, or the state assembly, or governor, or those 7 statewide offices? What is unique if you were a local elected office? It's nonpartisan by law. Yes. Really important. The parties, starting back in 1995, because of Newt Gingrich and what was happening nationally, in California decided the parties were really going to focus on local elections. The idea was build up their base, get Democrats and Republicans, big D's, big R's all elected, and that eventually feed. Well, term limits in the state of California actually had a big impact. The only way you're probably going to get there with the old formula, you're really probably going to come from local government. And then previous to that, almost never happened. More true today, but less because you can now stay in office for a longer period of time. So I'm saying that because it's really important. All politics is local. If you're running for a local office, other than the state assembly, state senator, or statewide office, or Congress, or U.S. Senate, stay out of the politics. And I'll tell you why. First of all, most people don't know what party I belong to because by law I can't tell you if I'm in that role. I can tell you personally. It has nothing to do with it, and here's why. That was a pothole right there, a little dark spot. It's a pothole. It's not a liberal pothole, was it? It's not a conservative pothole, it's just a pothole. And you have two choices to make as a local elected person. One, do you want to fix it? You got to agree on that. And two, can you afford it? You might not be able to afford it. That's what local government is, whether it be a school. So in communicating, you have to be able to know who your audience is, who are you, and stick to the issues that are relevant to the office that you're running for. Stay away. David said, stay out of national politics. You're running for a local office. Try to stick and be focused. Don't get caught up in what you see on television and movies and thinking, well, this is his role, I gotta know everything. The reality is you probably know a little bit about the office you're running for. You probably know a little bit more than somebody. But the fact is local politics gets down to individuals. And the point is you can make a huge difference. And elections are a lot closer than you think. The late Robert F. Kennedy once said, few will have the greatest event in history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in total, all those acts likely to be the history of your generation. The point is we can make a difference. In running for office, people are electing you. Just what you're thinking about or what you look like. They're electing you as a person because they believe you're going to do something. And the sad truth is, people want government to do its job and stay out of the way, and they don't care. The only people that care about politics are the parties themselves. And if you want to be turned on or off to politics, go to a Democratic convention, go to a Republican convention. They're wackos. I'm sorry, I'll be honest, I've been to both. It's very extreme views in the world that we live in today. It's not the average person, it's not the average politician. If you're going to run, I'm going to ask you a question. By the way, I'm going to make you feel intimidated. It's the most important question to ask you, why are you running for school board?
I believe that I can make a change in education for the kids in Dublin, and I want to do it, and it's possible if I get to the goal, and that's why I'm running for.
So, that's pretty good, and that's pretty typical. But you know what? I'm not going to vote for you. Now, if I said, I want to run for the school board because I want to bring some financial responsibility back to our budget, and I want to make sure we have the best teacher in every classroom. Was that a clear message?
Yes.
It is. So when there was somebody running for local city council, not mine, but local, actually the city was standing here in San Ramon. And I asked this person why you're running. He says, well, I think they're doing a great job in the council. I just said, stop. Do you just know what you told me as a voter? I'm not going to vote for you. Why? Because you just said they're doing a great job. Why do incumbents win? Why do they get reelected? Unless they screw up really badly, they get reelected. Because as human beings, we don't like change. We want things to run in this kind of way. I don't want to have to worry about, I got to pay my bills, I got to get my kids to school, I'm worried about my grandparents. I want to worry about those things in life. So communicating is having a clear, simple message. The reality is with communicating to the public, you probably have 30 seconds of your attention. So, by the way, because I practiced it, what I told you I was running took 15 seconds. Sure. Most candidates, when they first run, want to tell you a story. And it's a wonderful story. I'm guilty of this. I've been through 8 elections. And I ran for assembly in the worst race in the state of California. My opponent, who lost along with me, spent $14 million on my $275,000. And he didn't do that well. So money, raising money, whatever, messages weren't very good. They weren't clear. You have to be able to communicate effectively. One of the most important ways, and as a local congressman, and with the redistricting, you can kind of move out here, Jerry McNerney for 2 years sent out robust emails that informed you what was happening in the district, both the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you know what? He wasn't even in office. You go, what do you mean in office? He campaigned for 2 years, but he acted like he was our local congress member in trying to inform us of the issues. He beat an incumbent. He was a Democrat. He beat a Republican in a Republican district. Why? Because that congressman had done something financially that was inappropriate in Texas. And Jerry spent 2 years pointing that out. Barely won. He's had a tough election because it's a ballot. His message was simple and clear. He used email. The world we live in, when you're his age, if you aren't connected to the world, get out of the way. Doesn't get a newspaper. No? Right, it's a newspaper. You know, I get all my news here. I just got 3 notices. And I'm an old newspaper boy when they call us newspaper boys. And they used to deliver door to newspaper. The world we live in about communicating is so different. And the fact is we're all different ages here. But I have a few of the same age as me around here. The fact is we have to create forms of communication. In a local campaign, having a robust email list is probably the best form of communication. It's a little private. You can be respectful. You kind of know what time of day, and a consultant will tell you exactly what time of day, what day of the week to send it out. And you get the best hit from that, who reads it and why. But the fact is, it's really inexpensive. If you're actually buying lists, you can do it for 3 cents, maybe 4 cents a contact. Unfortunately, mail is still effective. The most expensive thing to do. About 60 to 70 cents every time I know something. So my community, in Danville, if I send out a mailer, it's $8,000. When I send out an assembly, it was $28,000. So you do 10 of those, that's $280,000. So it's a very expensive process. And the fact is they get very careful. But in messaging, when we message, it's really important to know who we're communicating with. And again, remember, all politics is local. Stick to your subject matter and know it well. You can't use the campaign to help educate yourself about the job. You're using the campaign to educate yourself through communication with your voters. You're learning from that. As David just said, the same thing. Whether you're asking for money or you're out knocking on a door, you have to be able to communicate with that person. When you knock on a door, and I have to tell you, I'm a big believer in that. It really does work. And people know about it. And by the way, when I stand up in a group, let's say this is a PTA organization. I shouldn't say PTA, they're not political. Well, let's say I'm in front of a group of parents, and I said, you know, I was walking such and such a neighborhood the other day. And now you just told them you were walking, and they're going to go, where are you going to walk in my neighborhood? The fact is, you can't get to every household. But I have, because I've been around so long. I've actually made it to every household in Danville. There's 16,783. That's a lot. And if you spend 1 minute at each, you can do the math, how many years it would take you to do that. It took me 3 terms to get to half of Danville. And I happen to have the ability that I could do it full time. I had my company, kind of had people running that, and I stepped aside and I did that. In our community, he who walks, the person who walks the most wins. Doesn't work everywhere. San Francisco, pretty hard to do that. Fremont, you can hit neighborhoods. Effective ways to communicate. What do people want from campaigns? What do they want from us? The public, I'm going to read this, this is interesting. This is a research. This has been research from Harvard to Stanford, Yale, to Berkeley. Everybody's come up with this. The public vote wants simple cues that allow them to decide of candidates with minimal effort. They really don't want a dissertation. The public vote want simple clues that allow them to size up candidates with minimal effort. In other words, give me the 15-second why I'm going to vote for you, not the 2 minute. I have a tendency, when I first got in office, I told stories and wanted to tell people. I didn't realize it. I was trying to say, I really do know what I'm talking about. I know everything. I know the budget. I'm the smartest person around, and I looked like an idiot because I was trying to communicate so much. And what people are really making a judgment with just, you know what, I'm listening to him. I trust the man, and that's what people get down to. And if you're going into an office like the person in San Ramon said, gee, I really like the existing council. I think they're doing a good job, but, well, sorry. They have to say, you know what? The city of San Ramon has an unfunded liability of $125 million in their pension account. They're cutting services. They spend 2.5 times Danville, the highest per capita income, and they're still cutting their budget, and they're out of balance. That's what I'm going to fix, and here's how. I vote for you. I didn't know that they had $125 million. And by the way, they borrowed $100 million already to try to cut the first $100 million. Those are things you have to find. So on your school board, now you have to be appointed. You've got a little bit of a, unfortunately, your ballot's going to say appointed. I can't use the word appointed. You're going to say appointed. People actually don't like that. When it polls and you see appointed, you don't get treated the same way. So you have to distinguish yourself as to what's really important, what's probably the one thing in all the things you've met with parents, what concerns them the most. Figure that out. That's your message. But gender, when it comes to women, this is reality. Women are the smartest people in the world. Why? They don't put up with what boys do. Boys and men argue and want to fight and do that. Women say, I don't want to do this, let's get to the point and let's get it solved. So women don't do well with candidates. Now we have in the national, I'm not even getting into this, but you have a woman and a man, the typical male bully, and the woman is trying to act that way. It does not make her look very good when she attacks. But women generally do not vote for a candidate, a guy who's yelling and beating up and saying the other guy's a crook. That's the kiss of death for that gender. Studies found that Latinas hold only more optimistic and trusting attitudes about the government. Why? So why would Latinos be optimistic about government here in the United States? Not elsewhere in the world. In the United States, because, right, of immigration. And by the way, your group, same thing. But both Latinos and Asians, all the polls and all the studies show, are more likely to vote for a white male than anybody else. That's why you're in this room. You got to change that. You have to change that because it's a tradition. It's a symbol. Latinos have not historically voted. It's changing because culturally, the acceptance is in the United States, particularly California, Caucasians are almost the minority. Right?
Yes.
So things are changing. So recognize who you are, what you are, use your own accent. If you are an immigrant, talk about why are you here? The one thing people want to know and communicate, I'm passionate. My father was an immigrant. And my father was one of those way back, a long time ago, who didn't want to be here. His name was Marco Arnage. He changed his name to Mike. And he didn't speak English until he was 10 years old. And his father just died. His father wouldn't let him speak English at all. And the problem was, he was so proud to be here, be part of this, but he felt he was labeled because of the language barrier. But what people really admire, my father made a mistake. And for those of my friends who have immigrated and other family members since the early 1900s, those who said, I have a story, I'm here in the United States because I believe that I can accomplish something, I believe I will have the freedom, or whatever that message is, whatever brought you here for that passion, people want to know that. Because that's real. You have more conviction for most of you if you were first generation or even before that. If you literally were born in another country, came here. People want to know that. They want to know your conviction and your passion. Because the average person who lives there takes all that stuff for granted. So that's an important part. It's an asset that you have. And somebody says, well, I don't speak really well. You know, I have trouble with certain syllables and things like that. You know what? Practice. Communicating. David, I have to tell you, is a really good speaker, right? And as all of us, Jess, you've been in office 4 years. Yeah, 3. So guess what? He is probably 5 times better speaker than he was 3 years ago. Come back 10 years from now. And you're going to find that he's going to be even better, because it is, as an elected person, your job is to communicate. We have to say, what are we doing, why are we doing it, and answer your questions. So communicating is knowing who the audience is, the people, recognize men and women, look at politics, everything. And by the way, when you're speaking to a woman, guys, just say yes, thank you, I will take that. Don't argue, because one, they're probably smarter. And you have to realize the new demographic is, when I was in college, back in the 70s, 75% men, 25% women. Do you know that today, in every single college, in almost every discipline in the United States, there are 50, that's 50% more women than men. Huge change. That's another whole political discussion about what happened. The fact is, there will be more women in politics, in government, in running businesses, because the fact those are the ones who go to college. The dropout rate for men is 3 to 4 times at the second year of college than it is for women. And you already have 50% more women. Recognize who your constituency is. There's also, anybody remember the comedian Jerry Lewis? You have to go a little older to probably remember him. He was this crazy, goofy guy that could make his body go do dumb things. But when you saw him, he's a very serious, very intelligent person. And something that it took me a long time to realize, that adrenaline is wonderful. Adrenaline usually makes you do this, you're a little nervous instead. But adrenaline, he said, adrenaline is wonderful. It covers pain, it covers dementia, it covers everything. And he became a good speaker because that's why he acted the way he was. He was so frightened every time he got up on a stage. Barbra Streisand, the singer actress, did you know she just started a tour? Didn't you know she could perform in front of an audience for nearly 2 decades? She couldn't get past the fear. Really talented person. So adrenaline is what our body does for us to help us in case we need to lift something heavy. It's an emergency, it's a dangerous situation. Your body can do greater things than you thought you could, because that adrenaline, it dulls your senses but allows your muscles to go. Use the adrenaline when you get to that nervous situation to think quickly. And by the way, one of the most important things you can do when you're communicating is pause. Pause effectively. It gives you 2 points. 1, it'll get the adrenaline level down, swallow. And 2, it'll allow you to respond. But whatever you do in communicating with the public, be honest. No matter what happens, it will always catch up with you if you were not honest. And when you're first elected, you have a tendency, we all have done this, we want to say we know everything, we don't. And you expect us to know everything. What's really important, this is hard to do, I have to say it. I don't know the answer to your question, but I will get back to you by tomorrow morning, and I'll find out, because I want to know too. Most politicians want to tell you I know, because otherwise you're perceiving yourself, well, I'm not smart, I'm not doing my job. The reality is we don't know. So you have to be able to be honest with yourself, but really be honest with the public, because In politics, as we all know, there is a very short window of opportunity when you're not. And if you do make a mistake, what is the most important thing to do? And do it quickly. Apologize, say you're sorry. I will not do this again. I have learned from this, and go on. A good example of that and how we communicate, Intel, right? Almost every device in this room has some Intel technology in it. When Intel first came out with the Pentium chip, and they said this is the best, it was at the time, it was a 12-fold advancement. There was a problem with the chip. It had a mathematical error in it. And when they first heard about it, Intel said, no, there's no problem like that. Whoa, UC Berkeley, Stanford, all these students came up and said, excuse me, there's a terrible problem, and blah, blah, blah. Their stock dropped. People started canceling orders. It almost put them out of business. And Intel said, you know what? We made a mistake. You're absolutely right. Every one of those things, we take it, we fix the chip, here's the patch, here's it's done. We're sorry. Lesson learned. They have never, ever made that kind of mistake again. And if you were, that was the politician, you'd do the same thing. What they should have said is, you're right, here's the patch, here's the fit. They were so arrogant of being the world's premier leader in that technology, they didn't want to admit they didn't know they made a mistake. They didn't want to admit. So, even while you're running, be honest. If you don't know, say, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll find it. And you make sure you clearly get their contact, and I tell you what, that person will be your friend for life. Because we don't take the time as elected leaders to really make those personal contacts. And you know, 30 seconds. All you got is 30 seconds. So communicating today is using every source of media, being consistent in your messaging, being able to use, we have so many online things. We have some local elections. So right now, you'll recognize the name. You're looking at Google News. It knows, because my IP address, every device has an internet protocol. Every unique identifier says I'm in this building. They know I'm standing in this building when I get that news feed. So it pops up to say that, I won't say her name, but a so-and-so candidate is running for office. Those aren't inexpensive, those pop-ups, but boy, Google, Facebook, all does those. If you are a new candidate and you're trying to, it's an open seat, you have a little better chance. If you're trying to get rid of an incumbent, you gotta be tough, you gotta be honest, and really factual. You gotta be honest with your own budget. You can say, hey, I just spent the past 18 months, you know?
Yes.
For one, wait. So I spent the past 18 months figuring out, you know what? We've got a problem here, and I'm here to fix it. You gotta be honest like that. If you're gonna be that milquetoast kind of, well, you can see it's really nice. I'm really a good person, vote for me. Sorry, it's not gonna happen. And if you don't spend all your money in your campaign account, you want to know why you lost? It's not an investment in the future. You say, oh, I want to save. I always like to save money. If you're trying to beat somebody and you're saving money, you're not going to win. So communicating is using traditional methods, still meeting people. You have to force yourself. Have somebody shoot a video of you in a real circumstance. What do you sound like? Do you have trouble communicating with? And I always say this, and Andy has invited me to talk at speaker groups and things like that about folk. So if English is your second language, you have to remember this. The person who has the most trouble understanding you is not me. English is my first language. Is the person sitting next to you who also has English as a second language. You are actually have more issues talking to each other in another language than you do your own language. Same, like I can talk to somebody in English. Recognize that when you're in a group. So if you're at an Asian Pacific group, know that each one of you have a different accent, a different way. That is the hardest group you're going to deal with. Because if you speak English, regardless of how the syllables come out, in that primary language, you can hear that pretty well. It's just an observation. So recognize that and know what's the best form of communication. If it's going to be oral, know that you got to speak maybe a little slower. You have to have a little more pause in there. But you're going to have to, if you're a first-time elected person, you're going to have to pull out all the stops. Every level of communication. And by the way, nobody uses newspapers except for one thing. It's because we as elected want to use it when they like us. The editorial process. People don't read the actual newspapers. They don't get it. They might get an electronic copy. The newspapers are really important. They can hurt you. There's a local election for Bartball. The Times, East Bay Times, which owns 26 of the 27 daily newspapers in the Bay Area, their editorial, all their papers is, vote no. And they listed all the reasons why. And it's powerful. It said, hell no, vote no. That's how much they felt. Could you imagine if it said for Evan, hell yes, vote for him, or hell no? It's going to have an impact because then it gets reproduced. The other candidates can use it. So it's really important that when you communicate with the newspapers, be prepared, be really honest, and don't make a mistake in your facts. They know them better than you do because they did their research. They're asking for only questions that they want to know, and they've already set you up. If you don't know, you will be punished for that. You probably won't ever advertise in the newspaper because who reads them? But the local, the patch, the local news, the Danville Today, the San Ramon Today, the Lafayette Today, all of those local things, those are electronic and digital, everybody reads them. We did a survey in the Tri-Valley area to try to figure out how to communicate for a variety of things on regional issues. The number one way we communicate is on all those electronic media outlets. Nextdoor, Nixle, Periscope, free online. Nextdoor, I made an announcement for a candidate that I was trying to help. And in 60 seconds, I reached 8,500 homes in Danville. For the next 2 weeks, I kept getting, oh, that's great to hear, that's great to hear. Didn't cost me anything to do that. Connect up with those things. It's somebody to help you message. There's one other thing is when you communicate, do not make a typo. I don't know what it is, but people are not forgiving. You send out a flyer, you send out an email that has a typo in it, and I have to tell you that people will look at you and you didn't care. You didn't pay attention. So the important thing is make sure that you have some help. Watch a video of yourself. Look at other candidates and ask yourself, why did you like that person? What was it that made them communicate? Ask for some help from your friends. Is that mine? My time is up. So, communicate.
So we have time to take a couple questions.
This is a general question for our community. I have seen a lot of people around me who are very thankful, but they are not coming out to be elected because they are too busy in their life, or their friends that if they make a commitment, then they may not be able to do well in their job because some of the public service position is voluntary, right? So how do you, or there is, or many of you are in the, how do you handle that? When you make the decision to run for office, how do you handle that?
So that's a really good question, and I advise on this. So in Assembly, it's a full-time job. Congress is a full-time job. Congress makes twice as much as they do. Literally.
Thanks for rubbing it in my face.
Yeah, me too. And it's actually, for a lot of people, if you were an attorney and you go to the state senate, you're going to take a big salary. You're probably going to make half at least. And you're going to have all these rules and restrictions. Okay compensation, there you're going to travel if you're on the West Coast. In local, state law sets that you get paid, I'm trying to remember, it's in Danville, I spend $10,000 a year to have the privilege of being on council. I get a stipend, which is taxable income, set by state law. It's based on population, it's $695. But I have to pay for my own cell phone, I have to pay for everything. So if this event today, if I were speaking, to sit there and it costs $100, I have to write a check personally for $100. And I can't use the campaign account because in local elected, here, other than you get at the county level, you can't use campaign funds to do that. So you can't use, say, excess funds to help cut their costs. It has cost my company $2.6 million for me to serve in the council. You can't, unfortunately, be in local government if you have a city that's, say, 40, 50,000 and above. Government exists during the day, and at night, but a lot of you meetings during the day. You don't have enough, you have a full-time job, you work for somebody, the reality is, you don't have enough vacation time to do your job. So that's really hard. Now, if you're independently self-employed, you have flexibility over your time, yeah, you can do it. I still, basically, I work 6 7 days a week. But when I'm mayor, it's almost full time. It's at least 40 hours a week. No. So it is a challenge. Now, if you're going to serve on the school board, it's not the same hours. You can make that. That's up to you. But state assembly, you're full time, and you're going to have a staff of about 12, 10. Yeah. And by the way, he could lose his staff if he didn't go along. That's another story. 20. Yeah, 20. So you're not, all of a sudden you become instantly a manager. You have your own small company, loyal people, but he has to manage those 10 people. And then he has to make sure, are they doing their job and things, they have HR, same thing. And you have to hand choose those people. In our offices, we don't. Most of the people that might be with us, we only get to hire by law 2 people. It's true of all cities. City manager, city attorney. That's it. Can't interfere, can't get involved.
So I think that's your question.
Yeah, and when you talked about there was like you using email as your communication to other people, say like 3 to 4 cents each person, where are you?
3 to 4 cents. So you can go out and buy a list from any constituency, any database. You can go and you just search online. You can find a company. I need email addresses for political reasons, and you can buy that list. Now, you have to be very careful. It's actually better not to buy the list, buy the service. Let them do the emails, because if you did a data dump of, say, 10,000 email addresses, not donut, I'm going to say our campaign is done. That account, within probably 72 hours after sending the second email out, will get frozen. The reason why is that all of the account holders use an algorithm that says they're trying to prevent spam. You will look like spam pretty quick. You just get some refusals, you get enough hits. So you have to be very careful about slowly building your own database over time. It's carefully vetted so you don't get a lot of errors. If you get like 2%, 1.5% errors, they'll block every email you have. Block them all. So using a third-party service, they'll send the email, you type it up, put it in, they'll do it in a robust email, and they have mechanisms of how they can make sure that you don't lose them.
How much you need that service will cost you?
Well, if you're going to have them do the service, it's about 8 cents, could be as high as 10 cents. Much better. Remember, it's 60 to 75 cents to do a mailer, because the postage is so expensive.
Okay, so let's hold the question. I think that after this, thank you so much. And after this, we'll have like a dinner. I think we'll stay here. You can ask more questions. And our next speaker is Assembly Member Evan Lowe. I think we have a lot of firsts in this group. He is like the youngest Asian American mayor in the country, right? When we were elected. So he was elected as a Campbell City Council in 2006, and then in 2009 he was elected as mayor. And 2 years ago he was elected as California State Assembly member to represent the District 28. And also he's serving the leadership team as assistant majority whip. And he also served at many high-profile committees, that's including the Assembly Privacy and Consumer Protection Committee, Higher Education Committee, and Governmental Organization Committee, also other like the Selected Committee on Cybersecurity, Bay Area Transportation, and Asian California trade and investment promotion. And I think he's the star of our Chinese American and very young, but is already the assembly member. So let's welcome Assembly Member Evan Lo.
First of all, can we give a round of applause to the councilman also for this one? Great to see an opportunity to get some words of wisdom, particularly it was 10 days of service? 21. 21 years of service. I was going to say almost as long as I've been alive, but I'm alive. I knew you were young. And then Auckland, it was good to see you as always here as well. I had not just get a chance to, hello? I didn't get a chance to see bio from you. Could you just really quick name and where you're from so I have a better context of who you are and what you might be interested in?
Sam from San Francisco.
Michaela from Oakland.
David from Pleasanton.
Anthony, Pacific Mission Foundation.
Peggy Chu, Association of Northern California Public Schools.
Nolan Chen, Association Commission, but I'm doing the same.
Same spot.
Michelle Wade from Danville, Air Force, and
Sylvia Tian from Pleasanton, or journalist, right now sitting on the meet in Civic.
Jeff Tan from Redwood City. Shangali.
15 in Cemetery. And I followed the Civic Leadership Forum from Cemetery to Central Florida and to Austin, Texas. And now it's in St. Ramon. And I can really echo to Adam said, we need to do it together. So I just want to thank you for all the speakers and all the attendants because you are the participant and then you are the one who make that fire going. So the second point is advertisement. Civic Leadership Forum, it is our one focus for Pacific Vision Foundation, PBF. I want to take home with civic leadership, diverse in leadership, but inclusive in participation. When everyone is on the table, no one is the man. That will be the day the world will be in peace. And the last thing, I just want to announce the next Civic Leadership Forum happening in Austin, Texas, October 1st. They grow from 30 people. Now they have to turn people away with 300 on waiting list. They're going to be large because it's right before the election. It is not about the size. It is about how serious people thinking about, I want to participate. We all on the table, not on the man. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you see I pull out my business card. Now a few people I do know. I think at this time we can kind of network, get to know each other, and have that is a great network. I hope in the future we can have more events like this, get more people ready, more participating in the civil fair. Also, I want to point out is not just one path to get elected. Actually, there are three paths. Is you get elected, or you get appointed, or just you work for the government. So there's a different path. It's not that get elected. It's the only solo path you can go with. And I think they will get the dinner ready, and for the next hour and a half is just water dinner and also just networking to know each other, ask questions, whatever. So thank you everyone.
No, I wasn't registered.
Oh, you did a copy of
I'll give you those stuff next time.
Okay.
Michelle brought me.
Oh, yeah.
She invited me.
I have
I guess.
You don't have a.